Alright, let's get this started. So, you've already seen their tanks, you've already seen their DPS, you should know roughly what kind of matchup this is now. So the thing to note is that they have, they're sort of like half dive, half poke, right? So they have the ball Genji, which is, you have a very diveable backline with Ana Zen, so you just need to keep tabs on what these two heroes are doing. So if they're getting behind you, and start hearing noise behind you, you need to spin very quickly and find whoever they're going on and bubble them, right? The second component is that they have a Widow and a Hog. So the Widow you can't really interact with, other than like you just need to kind of not die to her. But the Hog is something you also need to watch out for with your bubble, right? One of the biggest advantages of Hog Zarya is that you can make it virtually impossible to mess with your own Hog while he's hooking, right? So if your Hog goes to fight their Hog, you bubble your Hog kind of just wins 90% of the time. So these are the two biggest areas you need to bubble, since there's no obvious target to bubble like a Ryan. So generally speaking, the majority of your bubbles should happen either when they're diving your backline, or just diving someone in general, or when your Hog is going for an aggressive play / somebody gets hooked. You should pretty much never be bubbling outside that unless for some reason they just happen to be feeding. But yeah, let's see how this goes. So it's a little risky just like standing here and like just walking around, especially if you jump, right? So whenever there's a Widow, you should like play close to the corner, peek it, shoot, peek, shoot. If you need to turn around, make sure you're behind the corner before you turn around. I'm not sure if you actually were fully behind the corner before you did that. I think you're going to bubble here. So as we talked about, this bubble is not really good because last thing you can bubble, I forgot to mention, is your Doomfist when he goes in, right? But your Doomfist isn't going in; he's against a ball here. So unless you see the ball actually shooting at the Doomfist, you should not bubble him, because he's just not going to give you any energy. He might give you a little bit if, like, for some reason, like the Widow shoots his bubble or something. But generally speaking, he's not going to give you any energy. You want to save it for one of the things we talked about, right? Either the Doomfist going in, your Hog going for a play, someone gets hooked, or they're diving your backline, right? These are kind of your major conditions. You don't really want to do anything else. Right, so a bubble right there on your Hog as he went for the hook would have actually been really good. Because imagine if like he gets denied right now. If he hooked the ball and then immediately got hooked by their Hog. So both the Hogs missed, so it didn't end up mattering. But imagine they both hooked each other. You guys would have been really sad. So just make sure like you save the bubble for like aggressive moments, right? Or when like the enemy team is fully committed, and so then using it defensively is worth it. Yeah, the net result is you get here with no energy. Also, careful with the Widow. Good awareness. Be careful jumping like this. Good Widows will just headshot you. This Widow actually does not hit you yet, I think. So generally speaking, this isn't really the best option because you don't have any charge yet. But as soon as you get some charge, you want to avoid playing these so just in general, you want when there's a Widow in play and you don't have anything that can actually contest the Widow, you want to avoid playing long sight lines. Oh my god, can we? This sound. Wait, why am I back here now? What? All right. So generally speaking, you want to avoid playing these long sight lines, right? Where you're just facing off against a Widow and you can this right click does like 45 damage or something really small, with a direct hit, right? And meanwhile, the Widow threatens 300 damage headshots every time she peeks you, right? So this just isn't really a good trade. You'd much rather be playing where the Hog is playing, where you're much closer to their corner and you can like much more safely jiggle peek. And right here, like you're just much more exposed. And if you don't exactly know where the Widow is, she might like show up on the high ground and just kill you before you even get back to cover, right? So you just don't want to take the risk. You want to play the short angle, right? And then you want to transition to hotel any chance you get to flank. This is best done when you're high energy, and preferably right after you use a bubble, right? So in Ryan situations, you would bubble your Ryan here, and then just swing through hotel as your Ryan's either pushing or the enemy team is pushing into your Ryan. You swing into hotel and you go kill their backline, right? This is something you can do whenever your range is lower than theirs, and there's nothing to pressure up front. So, but obviously you're struggling to get energy, so this isn't really an option anymore. So. But just something to keep in mind. You don't want to play the long angle. You want to play short angle, and because you're playing short angle, that gives you room to flank. Again, it's generally a good play to bubble your hog when he goes for the hook. It just removes any ability to respond, right? So not only can the enemy hog no longer hook him back as soon as the hog wait, he hooked the ball, never mind. But the enemy hog can no longer hook your hog back, but it also blocks things like anti and sleep that will be flying at your hog pretty much always in that situation. Like, whenever the hog hooks, usually both teams look at that hog. You need to give your hog resources to live, and the enemy team is looking at your hog to try and to either deny the hook or kill the hog after he hooks, right? So you need to be like, you just need to bubble that. There's almost nothing wrong with like just preemptively bubbling when your hog hooks. Yeah, this way, don't play the long angle sight line. Don't get any energy of it because the widow's not going to shoot you again. Your widow kills her. Get in there.
I found it.
So you're doing an overall decent job staying alive, but like you're just kind of not contributing anything to the actual fight, and this is like reflecting in the ult. The only one who has lower ult than you is the Zen, and I'm not even sure how, to be honest. Yeah, so you just like, you've done some damage, but it's mostly been right clicking, and you haven't really found any opportunity to either like build energy or do much damage. So like you're just kind of struggling to like find the right bubbles. So like be patient with your bubble, wait for the right opportunity, and when you see a trigger, right? Like your hog hooks, somebody gets hooked, the enemy just diving your backline, etc., then you bubble, right? Some charge. So, just FYI in general, on every self bubble you do, 16 charge is what it takes to break even over the course of the cooldown. So if you get more than 16 charge, you are making energy. So you got 1 energy out of that bubble. Actually, I think it's 18 energy for a self bubble, and 16 for a projected. Yeah. Looks like she's lagging. Yep. Okay. Oh, you omega lag.
No one can hide from
This is obviously a very hectic situation. You were lagging. It was hard to figure out exactly what was going on. I liked your patience not to bubble the hog when he was over here, because both him and the other hog were running away and healing. But again, when you back up, don't back up to the open area when you're at a range disadvantage, right? So if they were running like Reaper and Ryan, they swung out, and they were like, and they was like walking in, it would make more sense to like play wider with your own Ryan. So if your Ryan's holding here, you want to swing out and play wide, right, to draw pressure away from your Ryan. But in a situation where you don't have any like they have long range and you don't have help, you really don't want to play out here. It's just not your effective range, but it's definitely their effective range. Although I guess the Widow's dead, so it's not as bad, but you also don't get anything from being this range, so overall it's not very good. So again, whenever the ball slams, shooting the ball is not your priority. Making sure your teammate is fine, right? So you get to this point, the ball slams. You know your supports are in the area, if not directly next to you, right? So instead of looking at the enemy team with this, you need to make sure you swing around, like just swing your mouse around, and find somebody to bubble. Either one of them would have been fine. You don't actually know who's going to get shot here, so. And you would have guaranteed gotten a lot more energy as well if you just bubbled as soon as they slam, because that's when people dump shots in, is when people are CC'd, right? Yeah, be really careful with these bubbles. Like, I know it looks like he's kind of in danger, but you really don't want to bubble him unless he's going in, right? So if he rounds his corner, like, passes the arch and lands on point somewhere, like, is about to go on point, then you bubble him, right? But if you're just hanging out the arch, it doesn't matter what he's doing, unless he's, like, charging a punch right here. Even if he wasn't charging a punch, you have time to react, because he can't actually go around the corner with the punch very easily. So if he's charging a punch, he's either going backwards, or he's going to, like, come out here and then swing out and then do that, and then, like, do his slam uppercut thing. I mean, it would be very smart, but, you know, he might do it. In which case, then you can bubble him, right? But you really don't want to bubble him until he's committing, until you know for sure he's committing. Because, like, as you can see, it just doesn't get you anything. Now you're down the cooldown. That bubble's just not going to get you much. It's just too far away. You'd much rather the bubble right here when you're crossing, because they're shooting, right? And obviously this is hindsight talking, but generally speaking, like getting like 5 charge off a bubble is just not worth it, right? You'll lose the energy before you get the bubble back. So like if the Hammond's shooting at you and he's just nibbling away, like not worth a bubble. Although the Widow shot the bubble anyways. I don't really mind that bubble. It was a little bit blind. You didn't know what was up there, and I think you saw the edge of the Mercy like wing, so you should know that's like a res, and the Doomfist is not going to be under any threat. So I think you probably should have saved that bubble, but knowing what you did, which was not much, I don't really mind that bubble as much. It's just gonna be awkward if your hog gets hooked now. Ah! If you're gonna shoot the sleeping person, just commit to keep shooting them, you know. So this is committing a little too hard. I don't really mind if you play with your hog in general, because hog Zarya, like as a duo, is pretty strong. But like, committing this far, like, because realistically, when you got here, he rounded this corner, right? Right, so he got to this point and then you bubbled him by standing right next to him, right? Imagine if you were here, like, realistically this difference is about, like, 2 feet for the hog, right? From here to here, right? So realistically he's probably not going to die in that time, but here you're much safer. You're much likely to get pushed by the enemy team, and you can potentially help somebody still in main, like this Genji, or this Doom, rather. So generally speaking, like, going through here is both risky for you, and also just, like, it sort of removes your impact in the game. You don't get to shoot anymore while you're doing this. You don't get to help other teammates who might be in danger, right? Like this Doomfist. If the Genji wasn't here, like he was sitting up here, like he could actually go in your backline and you wouldn't be ready for it, right? You just kind of want to stay in the middle / high ground areas as Zarya. This is like really committal. And like you got 5 energy out of it. Yeah, you just gotta save that bubble once you think he's actually about to hook you in that moment. Because like you're in a relatively safe location, right? So just think about if he hooks you here, right? Where can he pull you to? He can pull you like at most here, and then like you can be shot by at most 1 extra person, right? There's actually the cart is actually in a spot that like the hog is pushing this side for some reason, and it made it very hard for other people to follow up on his hook. So you're actually fairly safe there. So you should only really bubble there if you feel like you're actually about to be hooked, and even then, it's not the worst thing in the world. Alright, we do have grab now. Let's see how you use it. Kind of just use it for solo kills, to be honest, against comps like this. That was a good bubble. It may have gotten a lot of energy, but that was a really good bubble. Sure, just grab that. Yeah, okay. So, you want to grab situations when the enemy team is exposed itself. So there's 2 ways, 2 main, okay, there's, let me think this through. The main ways to grab are either as part of a combo, so like grab Pulse, grab Dragon, grab whatever. In which case you really need very little setup. You just kind of like fling the grab at them, and then your team follows up and then kills them, right? The second major way to grab is like late in the fight where you burn their resources, right? So in a Ryan Zarya mirror, this is when you break the Ryan shield and you force the Zarya bubbles, right? So you just play a long fight and you try to like work the resources, and then as you get grabbed, then you use it, right? And if once they're out of shield, they're out of like they're low in shield and they have no bubbles, you use the grab, you crack the shield, your antis it, and they just all die, right? And that's a really easy way to grab as well. And the third major way is use it as like to relieve pressure, right? To create pressure of your own. So here your hog's gonna get slept. You have no bubble to feel for this guy. And in theory, your hog is going to get antied, right? But your Ana hits a great anti, so what you want to do is like as the 2 tanks converge on this hog, just nano, or not nano, just yeah, he's anti. Just grab here, keep them all together, and just kill them during the duration of this anti, right? And it's not a bad grab. Yeah, like, you eventually did it, and it was really good, but you should have just done that, like, maybe a second or two earlier. It would have been even better. Yeah, it looked like you were hard panicking for a bit, but you stabilized, you got energy now. Your priority is living now. You guys are gonna win the fight, so it should be fine. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's a great bubble. See, look how effective that bubble is as soon as you you see when your Doomfist goes in, right? You just need to be patient, right? You need to wait for the right opportunity to present itself, or else like your bubble is effectively going to be like wasted, and then you won't have it when you actually need it, right? So your Doomfist goes in, he immediately gives you full charge, and it protects his HP, his overshields, and potentially his life, right? Alright, so now you're at the point where high energy, and now you can actually potentially save bubbles now. So now you're no longer under pressure to use bubbles for energy, because you're at a point where, like, for quite a while, one bubble will get you to maximum charge, like one good 40 energy bubble. So at this point, you need to conserve bubbles and play them and use them only when they're needed to, right? So if you want to get aggressive, you can use bubble, but you will no longer get aggressive just for the sake of getting energy. You're now only going aggressive to get kills, right? You will now only bubble people when they actually need it. There's no more like farming anymore, right? See, that bubble is very high risk because your hogs are dueling. Oh, okay. Your hogs are dueling on this side, and you don't know what their hook status is, right? Meanwhile, this guy may or may not actually take damage. You have no idea, right? Whether or not like this Widow will actually hit him or not. She definitely hit the bubble, but she may or may not hit the Lucio. So you need to be really careful about actually deciding to bubble this guy, because now you don't have the bubble for the hog fight, which is arguably more important. So you can be a little bit more aggressive in this. You have a Widow with the long sightline who's not really contested, so as a result, you can actually just kind of walk up to the corner, right? Like walk up to the payload and just use it as cover, and just like, because the closer you are, the more effective you are to some degree, right? Like your right clicks are easier to aim, you can use your left click, and you can get a lot closer than this. I'm not sure whether Hog is so far back. Oh, he's killing your Hog. Okay. But like, you didn't have to play quite so defensive here. I don't really mind it. Like again, prioritize your life on Zarya, especially when you're high charge. Yeah, you can play a fair bit more aggressive than this in this situation. Yeah. So again, it was just a ball shooting this guy. Make sure you wait until this guy's actually in danger, right? Like they're actually committing on him. So if this ball like rolls over and then like I don't know how he gains altitude somehow and then goes for a slam, then you consider like bubbling this guy, right? But like, you really want to make sure he's actually in danger, because now this guy just got hooked and you have no bubble. Is this going to break it? This looks like it should break it. No, it doesn't. Okay. Well, either way, you should if you had bubble, you could have saved this guy, right? That's a good bubble. No one's fighting. That's free. That's okay.
The payload has reached.
My will is unbroken. No one can hide from my
Grab.
sight.
Unfortunate.
And they say
This is nuts. This is a big rollout. Again, don't bubble preemptively just because he's looking at you for a second, right? Like,
and they say
his gun is hit scan, so it doesn't travel, right? So as a result, like, anticipatory bubbles, you may get one shot out of them, but otherwise they're just gonna hold their fire and just like look at you, right? Just bubble because he's looking at you for half a second, and then he decides not to shoot you, right? The only thing that hits you in the end is the ball slam, and this is like not gaining energy, right? This is too little.
That's your license. Get in there.
That bubble's pretty good. Stuff on the side. it might have been better to wait a little bit longer because you didn't know what was on the other side, but you do know where the McCree is, right? So you know where the Cree, you know the hog was on this side, you know the Cree was on this side, right? So if he's slamming over here, there's probably nothing that's going to kill him on this side that you can't respond to, right? So you might have been better waiting until he ended up over here before you bubbled him. I don't really mind it though, just because like he's going over he looked like he was committing, and you weren't actually sure what was on the other side, but you should know that like all the threats were actually on your side. So that grab almost missed, but it was good. Yeah, again, hits they can just wait. It takes like bad trigger discipline for you to get bubble off energy off of those kind of bubbles. You have to wait for like projectiles, or like obvious signs of someone about to take a lot of damage, right? So for example, if your hog goes for a hook here, and he steps out and throws a hook, bubbling him is really reliable because everybody's gonna shoot the hog that's hooking, right? And as he backs up, then you step in and you projected bubble, and chances are they're still shooting that corner, and you'll get some energy, right? That's one way you can use like self bubble. My ultimate is charging. Far away.
Barriers on you. Go. Get in there.
Maybe a little early because of where the corner was. Just mostly because like you hooked, or he hooked, and if you look at the situation, there wasn't much that could actually put it in the situation. So like from where you're standing, you can see that there's nobody here yet, right? So you can afford to like wait a couple seconds before you bubble this, because like I know you want to bubble the hog who's hooking, but like you're also holding the same LOS as him, and you can see that nobody can shoot him, right? So if that's the case, you probably shouldn't shoot or shouldn't bubble here for at least a little bit, right? This hog comes out, or now you bubble, right?
Don't hide. Hit me.
Alright, leverage the energy, yes. Oh my god, the lag. Is that lag on your end? I think it was. That's crazy. I don't know if lag was showing in place. Well, I guess it is locally stored. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, not really. How might it? Or maybe it creates. Anyways, sorry. Alright. Hopefully, you guys play a more standard matchup now. So it's a little easier to talk about. Because ball matchups are inherently a little difficult. It looks like a Orisa Hog meta now. So now you're like all in on blocking hooks. Because that's your entire comp is pull hooks. If they don't go for pull hooks, then you can just kind of bubble whenever, as long as you're making sure you're denying hooks. But that said, like, yeah, you're aiming to use your one of your bubbles to block the pull hook, and you can use the other bubble to farm off a Junkrat. That's your main priorities. A really easy way to do that is just whenever your Doomfist goes in, bubble him. Whenever your hog hooks, bubble him. And you'll probably get it. And you have energy. Alright, I just gotta live. You can go for peeks here. Again, don't be preemptive with this, right? Just walk out first. If you see a Widow looking at you, then you bubble, right? But otherwise, walk out. Walk out first, and then make an informed decision. Don't expect things. Like, make sure you have information before you commit your bubble. Yeah, you're not gonna get any of it. You can play a lot more aggressive than this.
Barriers on you.
So, because you have no main tank, there's no one who's supposed to lead the action, right? The hog can kind of do it just by hunting and flanking and looking for hooks, but you can also just like go to shoot them. So, this part notwithstanding that we talked about, like once you hit this point, you get a really good angle. Or you can just shoot the shield, right? And you'll just break the shield. And if like the hog looks at you, you just jump around the corner, right? And chances are even if he hooks you, you'll break it. I know you want to bubble the hog, but you do more by shooting the Zarya in the side right now. And especially when the hog leaves, right? Like just keep shooting the shield.
Is that all you've got?
Like you cracked the shield by yourself, and then nobody else was able to shoot the shield, and the shield stayed up until this Ursa refreshed it, and she took no damage.
I'm even stronger.
Again, don't be preemptive with bubbles. Wait for like the hog to like start a hook animation or the Rissa to try to pull you first before you bubble, or else you can get punished and potentially just die. And still, you can play more aggressive. They have hook, but they have no pull anymore. So even though you have no bubble, you can still get aggressive as long as you're sure you can juke the hook. So the easy way to do that is to play wide on the corner, right? Just like use the car as cover and just throw bombs into the corner. And this is a pretty good angle, and you can afford to play defensive because they don't really have anything that can punish you at this range. Yeah, you're just missing out on lots of opportunities to do damage. Like lots and lots of opportunities. So you just gotta like look for more opportunities to do damage, and then make sure you're turning around when you need, when you feel like you need to for bubbles and stuff like that, or to like peel sometimes. But generally speaking, just spend more time shooting, less time looking around. So if you want to push this Junkrat, which you can, just jump on top of the car, right? Jump in the car, throw a bomb down, and start lasering him. One person. Yeah. So you guys just spent a lot of time not doing much, and you didn't get aggressive enough to like really like exert your control, like the advantage you had. And then you had like a situation where two people need bubble, you can only bubble one, and then now you're gonna end up losing for it, which is really unfortunate.
I am securing the objective.
Без труда, не видишь, и рыбку из пруда.
No one can hide from my sight.
Once you've bubbled, the self bubble was a little questionable. Oops, too far. So once you've bubbled this hog, you've got to understand like how much you can contribute just by walking to that room, right? So your hog is fighting. You've already given him bubble. All you can offer at this point is your body, your self bubble, and some damage, right? But in this enclosed area, this guy has plenty of damage. Oh my god. And realistically, like, your shielding isn't going to help this guy, right? He's in the room. He's either going to kill them or he's not, right? With the whole hog. You stepping in, it kind of doesn't matter. But you like breaking the shield and walking into Zarya and forcing her back over here into your hog as your hog finishes this is way more overall value, right? And you can cut off this widow from like the res, and you can eventually kill her on the way back, right? You're just missing an opportunity to like take angles instead of like, but instead of like you just kind of put yourself into the same spot as the hog.
No one can hide from my sight.
I guess that self bubble wasn't too bad. Now you're in this situation in a row.
I'm coming for you.
That bubble's kind of rough. She's not actually under any threat right now. I know it's common like habit from Zarya is like if they're panicking, just find somebody, anybody to bubble, and maybe it'll help them. But generally speaking, like don't bubble there. She's not gonna die. Yeah, I'll be honest. Most of this like the struggle with capping so far has come down to like, it's not. I won't say it's like all your fault because like a lot of people could have potentially carried this a lot harder. But you're missing out on opportunities to, like really control the game as Zarya, which is very easy to do when you're high charge. And on top of that, you're like not applying very much pressure. So as a result, like this Orisa who is like has a hog for an off tank is able to like hold down the point by herself essentially, right? And this really should never be allowed. Like Orisa is supposed to spend a lot of time. Oh my god, Orisa just cap. All right, so Orisa is supposed to spend a lot of time, dropping her shield, like having it explode in like 3 seconds, and then running back and waiting for, and like either using Fortify, or running back and waiting for the next shield cooldown, and then coming out and putting another shield down, right? But this Orisa her shield is being shot so little that she puts her shield down, and then by the time before the shield even breaks, she gets another shield back, right? And you can solve this literally by yourself, right? At level of energy, just by shooting the shooting the shield, because she regens something like 60 shield per second, total, I think. Like it's 10-second cooldown, 60 shield, 600 shield. So yeah, 60 shield per second. You could literally beam this down by yourself with 0 energy, right? So, just make sure like if you have nothing to shoot, at least shoot the Rhine or the Orisa shield, right? And this applies for pretty much every situation as Zarya. It's like if you have nothing else to do, make sure you're at least shooting something, right? Even if there's like the chance of hitting the right click is like virtually nil, right? Just keep shooting, right? Never stop shooting unless you're hiding for a late grab or something, or a big flank. So overall, most important things is timing your bubbles. This is kind of a weird game. It's a lot easier to figure out when to bubble when you have a Rhine or a monkey. And when you're also against a Rhine. This is like they're running Hog Ball and then they're running Hog Orisa now. But still, like, you need to find time. You need to like try and save bubbles for moments when people are either definitely going to need the protection, like when your Hog is hooking, or when people are definitely going to be taking damage, right? So when your Doomfist is going in, for example, and that way you much more reliably gain charge in situations, especially in situations where the charge isn't easy, right? That's like one of the biggest skill sets of Zarya is gaining charge when it's not easy to get charge. And then from there, when you have the charge, you need to be more aggressive with it. You need to just like go make sure you're contributing and making sure you're shooting, right? Sometimes you can only contribute right click, but a lot of times you can contribute like left click as well if you play the max range. Right now you're playing really far away, and it's really hard for you to actually offer anything during fights, even when you're high charge. What else? I don't really have much to talk about for your high charge habits, because you weren't high charge very often so far, from what I've seen so far this game. Most high charge Zaryas are a little too aggressive. From what I can tell, the one time I saw you get high charge, or 1 or 2 times, is that you're actually like a little too defensive. You just kind of need to walk in and shoot a bit more. Sometimes you don't even need to walk in; you just need to shoot more, because a lot of times you're actually in range, you're just not shooting. You're just like looking around at other things. It's nice that you're trying to help your teammates, but help your teammates when you're going to bubble, unless you think your damage is actually really important, for the peel. Otherwise, like, make sure like you're just shooting and shooting and shooting, and then turn around, bubble, and then go back to shooting, right? Yeah, those are the most important things. Yeah, I think that's about everything important I saw. So let's end it here.